So Justice Sotomayor
Sotomayor
is weighing in on this whole Trump stuff, the whole Doge, and apparently he's upending the democracy. And like all the lefties are now saying constitutional crisis when they've said none of that the past 100 years. And all the other mess, the NGOs that are getting funded. Find out all this and more on Self-Evident Podcast. Here we go. What's up? Welcome to Self-Evident Podcast. We just heard this intro.
How many times? Although I love it.
I do. Yeah. And you know, look in the future. There's going to be some cool things happening.
One of these days.
This whole thing.
It's going to all change.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you'll come back and you'll be like, wow, you guys are real pro. And then we'll be like, we've always been pro. Which
Although
is why
I will say, people are right. They're like, man, that background's good.
Yeah, the studio's dope. Yeah.
I'm really just patting myself on the back.
Because yeah. I mean, I'm short, guys. I couldn't do much. Him and Breno did a lot of the work. Just saying.
We slaved over this background, so you better give it love.
Yep. I was more the grunt. I just got parts.
You grunted?
And ordered a lot of parts and paid a lot of money for those parts.
And you grunted.
And I grunted a lot. So, yeah, you know, there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement, which is why Doge was created. There's room for efficiency.
Oh, good. That was good.
Now, here's the thing, though, because like a lot of people are commenting, which, by the way, if you've not given to this ministry, you got to do it. You know, Mike and I have been talking a lot about the whole giving aspect, and we've been on this trip about how people really find it odd that you're even saying, can you give us support? And it's like, dude, we're ministers. But if I was selling a different product, you wouldn't even question it, right? So it's like we're providing content and value with our time, and we're preaching and ministering the gospel, and people still think you're like,
oh, how dare you ask value?
Yeah,
but
you should trust the Lord, brother. It's like,
but if I just sell you a random T-shirt, you're like, well, makes sense.
Yeah.
You got to pay for it.
Yeah, you should give away your product. Cool, you pay for it then. I'll give it to other people. How about that? So, yes, if you guys want to support the ministry, you guys can. TheSelfEvidentTruth.com. Become a torchbearer, monthly sponsor. You guys can keep us going out there. Matter of fact, tomorrow we're going to Nevada and going to spend some time with the Nevadians up there in Yerington, and there's a lot of events up there. So you guys want to go check those out as well. The youth, we're doing a men's thing, a women's thing. We're doing the church thing. We're doing a couple of group things. It's kind of neat. There's a lot going on in 5 days. I think it's like 5 days of just straight events. Pretty. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but you know. Anyway, so let's talk about this. Democrats have been coming out lately saying there's a constitutional crisis. Mike's dying right now.
All I'll say is he and I were hot under the collar about something else before we press record. So you guys are getting the juice for this topic. The juice. So not to be confused with the juice. Anyway, this guy.
I'm just looking at the cameras because look how high up I am. And I know I set your camera and that's it. You were sitting up more.
Yeah.
So
do you want
sit up proper?
Here. All right. I'll up my chair.
And then you got to move that thing up too. Because now you see. So now
Happy?
I'm going to hunch a little bit and you can do you. See what I'm saying? But see, now that's even.
And all the audio listeners are going, would you just get to the
shut
topic?
Up and get to the topic.
Stop
yes, okay, cool. Let's go. Lefties now are coming out and saying, especially those the Democrats and the progressives, now they're calling this a constitutional crisis.
Oh,
again, you got to watch media. They all have the same buzzwords. They all the pundits say the same crap. You know, it's like a psyops. You know, that's what they're doing.
Isn't it funny that they just so happen to have the same phrase that they're all throwing out everywhere all the time?
And these are the same people that passed Obamacare without even telling the American people what it was until they signed it.
Well, we have to pass it to find out what's in it.
Because there's no constitutional crisis there.
No. Just sit down and lick the hands that feed you.
I mean, there's no constitutional crisis when Biden pardons 1,500 people and then does preemptive pardons, something that's never done before and upsets precedent. But there's no problem there.
No, that's all constitutional.
There's no problem. We're giving money and foreign aid to nations that are using it for weapons and things like that. And all of a sudden, money's somehow being funneled to other people in America through those same organizations. But there's no problem. Constitutional crisis there.
It's all constitutional.
So when someone steps in and says, you know what, we need to take the bull by the horn, start reining the stuff in, so we need to bring in some people from the outside to make sure everybody's held accountable, there's no problem there, except when you're a Democrat.
It's all unconstitutional.
And some of the people who claim to be Republican. So you're because they're not even Republican at this point, dude. Mitch McConnell, they all got to retire. And here's the thing:
there was something I really wanted to say that I won't say on air, but it's like, Mitch, get out of the way. Get out of the way. Go to your rocker. Just hang out.
Yeah,
I'm so tired of you.
You know, I was watching. I was getting a today. High and tight.
An idea.
High and tight. I was getting getting my hair did. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching Tube, and there's Trump doing another press conference. And I'm like, this guy's done more press conferences and interviews in the past 30 days, however long he's been in office, not 30 days, than Biden did in the last 3 years of his presidency. You know what I mean? So, like, there's just so much going on. Anyways, I'm not trying to toot Trump's horn here, but listen, let's talk about this. So Sotomayor came out, scathing review of what President Trump has been doing, calling it an almost upending of our democracy. I'm just going to pull it up right now because you just need to hear this. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor sounds the alarm about Donald Trump, saying our nation's founders were hell-bent on ensuring that we don't have a monarchy, which I completely agree with her on. I've been preaching this since 2004, 20 years.
I will say, President for life only got shot down by 2 votes.
Right.
The side little stat, but there was a big debate about President for life.
But President for life doesn't mean monarchy because he's still held by the Constitution. Do you know what I'm saying? So he could be the president for life, but he's only. It wouldn't have been bad to have someone. You know what I'm saying? You could be for life, but you're held back by the Constitution itself and what you can and can't do. That's all it's allowed in Article 2.
Right.
Whereas the king didn't have that stuff. He just made law.
I would argue Alexander Hamilton flat out said,
yeah, he wanted a monarchy.
He was like, well, president for life. That's basically a monarchy. Because what he wanted was, he said the English government system was the best government system on all the face of the earth.
We literally just
why not implement that?
Fought a revolutionary war to get out of that system.
Which was the flat out response.
100%.
Anyways, little history tidbit for you. Massey, continue.
Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. You guys can get our Constitution course today on teachable.com.
We do talk about that.
Yes, you can actually order one of those. 15 weeks. A lot of information.
Do you realize how much work we did to put into that?
Yeah.
You are getting one heck of a steal out of that. That is lifetime.
It's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. Lifetime subscription to it. You can go through it as many times as you want. You can bring other people through it. Start community groups. Start Bible studies with it. It is awesome. And
it's all online. You don't even need to order product. It's all online, so it's all streamlined for you.
There you go.
All the PDFs are printable. Anyways, let's get into this. She's saying that the founders were hell-bent on ensuring we don't have a monarchy and we could lose our democracy. That's another buzz catchphrase that's been going on. We're losing our democracy, which, again, no one ever talked about for the last 4 years, the last 16 years.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever brought this up until now. Oh, my gosh. So, and then this is actually from a Democrat website. She really didn't hold back this time because she held back all the other times.
Oh, yes. She is the paragon of constitutional rigor, not an activist at all.
Sotomayor said that the first way the founders devised to avoid the assent of a monarch was to give Congress the power of the purse. Yes, you are right. House is the only ones with the authority to pass any kind of budgetary things, such as funding the USAID. Which branch belongs to?
The executive branch.
Oh. Now, one could argue all of these 5-letter, 4-letter, 3-letter agencies should not exist constitutionally because we were not supposed to be funding other nations and helping them rebuild their nations when we can't even fix our own and we're $36 trillion in debt. We can argue all that stuff all day long. However, when you're looking at President Trump as he sits right now, that U.S. aid is under his purview. We're going to get into that later, okay? I'm just going to continue to read. Okay? Donald Trump.
Move your camera up.
Oh, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been working around the clock. Listen to this. They have been working around the clock to undermine our system of checks and balances. Okay, you can go there, okay? How come you weren't checking Congress and the power of the purse when they were passing all these bills to send money to foreign nations and other things like freaking Queer Hour in Uganda?
Because that's what Africa wants, is gay people.
Where was the Senate checking that stuff? Or where was the executive branch checking that stuff, checks and balances? But all of a sudden, now that you're being held accountable, as Maxine Waters just came out and said, we don't know what they have on us, right? She just came out and said that we don't know what they have on us. Cat out of the bag. You know what I mean?
Sounds like Hillary Clinton saying, we're all going to hang if he wins.
Right. So it's so crazy because 86,000 IRS agents, and then we send in a couple guys to go in and upend this mess and try to hold it accountable, and now it's a problem.
Now all of a sudden, everybody's like, how dare you do this? How dare you pull all of this apart?
So she continues. They're upending our system of checks and balances by unilaterally gutting agencies and systems that Congress voted to fund.
There it is.
So she just said Congress knew what they were funding.
And the assumption is, see, Congress holds the power. She just did a switch on you, and either A, she is evil because she knows what she's doing is twisting facts, or B, she's ignorant and therefore should not be sitting on the bench in the Supreme Court. What she just did is, well, I mean, Congress, I just talked about how they hold the power of the purse. So therefore, they fund this random agency. Therefore, constitutional cups and balls. Somehow, some way, unconstitutional. What she doesn't talk about is the fact that that agency is under the purview of the executive branch. So the president, who is directly over that agency, has every right to determine how that agency is going to use their funding. All he has said is, you're not allowed to use your funding.
That's right. So he can effectively say, USAID is shut down. We're just giving the money back to...
And Congress can't do anything about it because they can hand the money to the agency, sure, but he's in charge of the agency.
Right.
And what she doesn't want you to know, and if she does know this and doesn't want you to know she's wicked, if she doesn't know this, she shouldn't be on the bench.
That's right.
He has control over what they do with the money. All he said is, hey, you got this check, you can't spend it.
Right. Article 2 actually states that he is in charge of the executive branch of the United States. That's what he does. Okay, so let's continue. She's understandably concerned. This is the Democrat now saying this. Sotomayor is concerned. Courts will be ignored through short term by ramming through illegal executive orders.
Illegal.
Which
Define
ones?
that.
Yeah, they don't even say which ones. They're illegal now. How come you weren't questioning this when Biden was in office? Or Trump's last presidency, which you probably did, or Obama's presidency, or Bush's presidency. Any illegal executive act that has come against the American people is illegal. We've been preaching this for years. Any executive action that directly affects the American people individually, I'm not talking about if they create one to uphold law or whatever like that, but when the moment they start making us, let's see, this unelected official called them Fauci, when he's making us put on masks, get fired from our jobs and trying to take an illegal jab, all those things didn't matter. What about wicked governors? Like, what's her name up? Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan, forcing people through executive order to do something they did not want to do. That is literally the definition of a monarchy. Destroying even their own state constitution. And Michigan needs to keep standing up. Michigan needs, and we're going to be there in May, actually, to do the National Day of Prayer in Holland. We're going to be there to preach this. Right, and what incites my righteous indignation, because I'm not mad at these people. I pray for them. They need Jesus as much as we all do, right? They need Christ. They need salvation. But here's where it gets me, is that people will read this and not even do their homework. So the average person that reads this or watches Fox News, let's just go to the extreme, they won't do the homework themselves. They'll just believe what Trump is doing is right. Or they'll believe what Sotomayor is saying is right on this side.
And let's parse that out. This is how you read news. This is how you read what somebody else has said. She says illegal executive orders. Most people will take that on its face and say, oh, he's doing illegal executive orders because she's part of the Supreme Court. Be as the Bereans. Weigh it out. your next question should be, well, which ones are illegal and why?
Right.
Most people won't ask that question. They just take it as, well, she said he's passing illegal executive orders. So then they get on YouTube or Facebook and then they spread it all over that, oh, Trump's passing illegal executive orders. Show me which ones and show me how they're not constitutional. I'm not saying there aren't those that are unconstitutional, but until you provide for me line by line, I am not going to take it on face value that it is illegal just because she says it's illegal when she's the one who's saying, oh, we're about to lose our democracy. Good. Kill it.
Yep.
Because it's not a democracy. It's
We're
a constitutional republic. And I'm tired of people taking this line and going, oh, well, we're a democracy and we can't lose it and we're in a constitutional crisis. You're the first one who doesn't care about the Constitution because then, as Massey's going to read, she gets into the idea of case law.
Here we go. She also warned against the Supreme Court overturning well-established precedents. Listen close. Something that the right-wing justices have become more willing to do with the very notable example of overturning Roe v. Wade. Listen. This is what she said. This is what Sotomayor says. We must be cognizant that every time we upset precedent, we upset people's expectations and stability of the law. Great. So in 1973, when you set a precedent that was never legal in the first place, that didn't destroy people's confidence in the law? What about Dred Scott? What about DOMA? What about Marbury versus Madison? What about all these court all these court cases that all of a sudden have just been up and down and Supreme Court changing their mind? And now the federal government through Fauci had authority and they approved it. They didn't even try a case against it. That he had the authority by his own edict to stop an entire nation and shut it down. But people are supposed to trust the law, right? You know why they don't trust you? Because you're all freaking worms and liars. This is demonic. Sorry, dude.
Yep.
This is where the righteousness comes in. This is demonic at every turn. Right here.
If we're going to make the argument that case law is truth, is objective truth, Dred Scott is the law of the land. I don't want to hear anybody else argue, well, I mean, they overturned Dred Scott. Nope, doesn't matter. Dred Scott is law of the land because case law. This is the problem. And I was telling Massey this before. I'm going to go on a 30-second rant. Stick with me. If you don't want to hear it, just press the forward button. Here's the problem. Case law is you weighing things out by yourself. You're taking the scales and you're taking a lump of gold and you're putting it on one side and you're going, well, I'll weigh it by the other lump of gold. There's no objective standard because you did away with the Constitution and the fact that you're not weighing it by the Constitution and what the original intent was. You're just saying, well, what was the last opinion that was given? That's why they say, oh, well, you know, Roe v. Wade, that was law of the land. No. It was an opinion. And now you're saying, well, this opinion matters because somebody made it. It must be valid.
So let's go with that.
And that's the problem with this whole case.
Yeah, let's go with that for a minute. You pulled up Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. I want him to read it, and we're going to go through this real fast to destroy even her own arguments. Dude, these people that think they go to Harvard and they can just become judges, you can become more stupid than the average person reading the Constitution. The entire Constitution was written for the average farmer of that time. It wasn't hard to understand. And now they've made it to where, well, we have all these other precedents that make this legal. No. Just follow the daggum piece of paper that was written. Go ahead.
All right, you want me to read it?
Yep.
Section 2?
3.
Section 3. That's treason.
No. It's Article 3.
Article 3, section, which section?
Article 3, Section 1.
We didn't plan this.
Article 3, Section 1, sorry.
Okay. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Section 2. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the United States and treaties made or which shall be under their authority to all cases affecting ambassadors.
That's it.
Blah, blah, blah.
That's it. So they're only supposed to rule on cases under the Constitution. So whatever comes up, it's constitutional or unconstitutional. Here's the question. Where did it say they're allowed to make precedent? Where does it say they can even make up law like Roe v. Wade was supposedly? Where does it say that they can interpret it the way they want to? It says what it says. Whatever the Constitution says, the only authority they have, the Constitution was meant to limit the authority of the government, not the people. That's the point. She's trying to go there in this whole thing, but she's not. What I believe, and I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt here because I don't trust government as far as I can throw. I don't give a crap who's in office. I just don't trust them. But I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt. What they're actually trying to do is hold some kind of semblance of accountability. And we're all seeing it for what it is now. We're all seeing it now. Nobody's, not once. She did not once in this rant that she did, and I believe she did it in, she did this speech at a Miami-Dade college in Florida, okay? Not once was it mentioned. There sure was a lot of corruption they uncovered, though. We need to look into that. Why did the Congress and them allow that? How come nobody else blew the whistle? Why are we sending monies from the American people? Never once, not even these people that are in CNBC, MSNBC, none of these places are talking about the illegal, corrupt acts that were done. But you know what they're trying to do? Stop themselves from being exposed.
Yes.
It's like a cockroach when you turn the light on, they all scatter and scurry. You know what they do? Stupid light. No. You don't belong in my basement, dog. You don't belong in my stuff. You see what I'm saying? So like cockroaches, they sit there and they try to justify why the cockroach wants to stay in your basement.
And go figure that people would get mad if you're about to turn off the spigot of blank checks.
Oofda.
Isn't that interesting that everybody comes out of the woodwork and we need violence in the streets? Why? Because they're auditing random government bureaucracy. I want you to pause for a second. All of you, especially those who are of left wing, which you're probably not even watching anyways, but let's say you are. I want you to think about this for a second. They're arguing for shadow over their institutions that they've set up. Why would they do that? And they want you to cause chaos because funding is getting cut off for their pet projects.
100%.
They're not fighting for you. You don't trust the cops. You don't trust the establishment.
Yep.
You don't trust big business. Well, guess what? Those politicians that you're like, well, I've got to trust what Maxine Waters says. She's insane.
Here, let's go a step further. It just caught me because I'm going to read the next paragraph, but I want you to go with this with me, okay? She's saying precedent and all these other things, and which courts are not allowed to do. They're just to interpret the law. That's all they're supposed to do. And if the case is not in the Constitution, they're supposed to throw it out, leave it to the states. Yeah. That's literally Articles 9 and 10 of the Bill of Rights, okay? I just want you to hear this. Now, she's a judge. According to her, we're supposed to be impartial. The law is blind. Justice is blind. You're not supposed to take a place. Why is she calling out Donald Trump and what he's doing at a college? I want you to hear what her last paragraph says. This is what she warns the future of America to do. Watch. We're going to lose our democracy, says an impartial judge, right?
Fear.
Right. Unless Americans, particularly you young people, take steps to inform yourselves, well, and combat the misinformation chaos created by the rise of the internet. We're going to lose our democracy unless you're well informed. Not unless you hold us accountable. Not unless we get rid of the corruption. Not unless we start holding to the Constitution. It's about informing yourself, but you got to make sure that you inform yourself and combat properly misinformation because of the internet. That's so crazy you weren't saying that crap before the rise of guys like Joe Rogan and all these other things. And I'm not even touting Joe Rogan.
Right.
We got to be careful because I'm watching people who are like Danica Patrick. She's kind of come on the scene. She's a former race car driver, right? Yeah. The only reason that I'm like, cool, good for you. You voted for somewhat of a semblance of doing something right. Like I think her whole thing was make America healthy again. I think that was why she voted. But I don't like the fact that this is personal. This is not constitutional. That she's into sages and crystals and all these other things. Mm-hmm. Elon Musk is not a believer. So what's his basis of law? Right? Trump, questionable. He says he is, but we don't know, right? Because he gets people around him. I'm just saying what's on my heart, okay? I'm just throwing hypotheticals. You get people in there who are not ascribed to the basic moral tenets of why law exists in the first place. So we have to be careful on both sides of this. But when Sotomayor is going to a college and picking a side and coming against Trump, this isn't just about law, it's coming against Trump at a college, which I bet she got paid for, does that not sound like a conflict of interest?
And let's take it one step further. She talks about misinformation and the rise of the internet. And we were hanging out with Pedro this morning, and Pedro said somebody posted on his Facebook about how, I think it was Facebook, whatever, posted about how the AP is the most trusted news source. And I made a crack about that. I was like, yes, because all mainstream media outlets trust the AP. MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, they all trust the AP, so it must be trustworthy. This is that exact line.
Yep.
No. Don't look at the internet. Don't look at independent sources. Do not look at Matt Taibbi or Jonathan Turley or Michael Schellenberger. Do not look at those guys. Just go to the mainstream establishment media. Go to the AP. Then you'll battle misinformation. Isn't that funny that at the same time, they just so happen to be funding Politico and Newsmax and all of those guys.
And George Soros conglomerates, NGOs. All these NGOs run by the Soros foundations. How in the world did we get to the point where you're trying to decry the rights of the people on the left? They're always saying it's about rights, and we need to provide for women and their abortions and all these other things. But the actual rights given to us by God, I'm not even fighting for this. I'm saying you're providing for a media outlet and people killing their babies, but when it comes to like owning a gun, you won't give the people stipends for that. I don't want you to. I'm just saying, if you're going to give people their rights, how come we're not providing for that? Why aren't we doing that? Freedom to worship. How come you're not providing for churches?
Oh, go figure.
Right. And I don't want you to, because it's unconstitutional. You're not supposed to do it. What you're doing now is illegal. But what I'm saying is, look at how they twist things. We can provide for rights, but not actual God-given rights.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Not that.
Rights that we define.
Right.
For you.
Matter of fact, I just heard this yesterday on a podcast. It was a Christian podcast, and I'm not disparaging their characters. I just think when it comes down to being the sons of Issachar, you need to understand the law and justice. Read Esther chapter 1. You'll see what those who understood the times actually meant. They understood the law and justice. And so what happens is, with Christians, we become emotional. So their plea was, this guy's like, I find it funny that when we want to help the illegal immigrant population or those who are undocumented, they were in a good place. I'm not saying that they were evil in what they were saying. So I'm not condemning their character or disparaging their character, because I don't know them. But they seemed like they were coming from a genuine place. But look at where the delusion comes in, okay? This isn't a disparaging on their character. I'd love to reach out to them and have them on. But what they were saying was, we want to help these people who are illegal, but the big kickback we get from Americans is, well, we need to help our own first. And he goes, well, we tried passing legislation. Where's universal income? These are Christians. No, we shoot that down. What about sending money to impoverished areas? We shoot that down. We shoot this down. And you want to help, but you basically called it hypocrisy, and that we need to help the poor. That's what we're here to do. And I'm sitting here saying, they don't even understand the Constitution. They don't even understand what law is. They're coming from it from an emotional place. And anyone who's anyone, like the Sotomayors and all these Alina Kagans and the BLMs, they start from an emotional place. They get you charged up. You're going to lose everything if you keep doing this. So they get you charged up. The right does it too, okay? They get you all frustrated. Everything's going to be done. But it's like, you have to be careful. Instead of getting into emotion, you've got to be principled. You got to come from a place. What makes me emotional is when people lie. That's what angers me. And that frustrates me.
The effect it has on the people
100%.
Around us.
An illiterate populace. Mm-hmm. We're just as good as illiterate if we don't understand the basic documents that make a nation, okay? We're just as good as not being able to read because we don't even understand what the system of government we have. So this is what's been happening for over 100 years, well over 100 years, especially in our education systems. When we're saying defund the Department of Education and get rid of it, what we're saying is, we don't need the federal government to tell us a one-size-fits-all curriculum for our kids. Our kids aren't going to all learn the same way. They're not going to do the same thing. And when we keep feeding them propaganda after propaganda, we don't even feed them real history anymore. Our buddy of ours is going to college right now. They don't even talk about American history. They're talking about civil rights and DEI stuff. They're not even talking about history anymore at this point. And so what's frustrating to us is, we're feeding a generation of kids for the last, I'd say 2 or 3 generations. We've been feeding them to hate America. Hate its founding, hate the founders. Everything they did was wrong. They started off as a slave nation, and we're still slaves today. That's exactly what they say. They don't talk about liberty. They don't talk about freedom. They don't talk about the sacrifices they made. They don't talk about their flaws in a positive way. They talk about it in a negative way, and that because of their flaws, we're still flawed. Not in order to perfect our union and perfect our form of government, like it says in the Declaration. So in order to form a more perfect union, instead of doing that, right? It's actually the Constitution. To perfect our union, we need to go through what they went through and say, what can we learn from the damages of the past, the sins of the past, not to commit them again? We created slavery in a different way. We just said now government can buy you off, not an individual slave owner. Government can make you a slave now if they give you the money to do it.
And
you're in hock to them now.
Can I give an example of how dangerous this is? All right, I'm going to read something to you. Stick with me. But this is, I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's just an aberration. It's an exception. No, it's planned and it's paid for and it's well funded, especially through USAID. But I'm going to share my screen. Ready? Craziness. Okay. So, guy named Mike Benz was on Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm listening to it now, and I'm going to tell you, I'm only like 45 minutes in. You have to listen to this because this guy was in USAID for a long time, and he understands what's going on. USAID is funding this stuff against you, and I'm going to read a quote
100%.
from him. He said, he explained how USAID leaned on advertisers. A government institution leaned on advertisers to boycott independent media outlets. For example, this is Ben's. For example, we just played interviews and the Internews CEO campaigning to governments and corporations and private sector civil society organizations, all funded by the government. That was my editorial. Around the world, that they need to economically blacklist news sites that operate on social media, and those are U.S. news sites. This is the basis of lawsuits here in the U.S. like Daily Wire and the Federalist suing the State Department because U.S. news sites are in these advertiser blacklists. And to that end, I want to note two things. First, if you go to my X feed and you type in the word advertiser or advertisers, and if you need to, you can plug in the word USAID or CEPS in this. And I want to show you that this is not Internews gone wrong. This is not a $500 million a year guarantee of USAID going rogue and being ideological about this. This is top-down U.S. government policy from the White House. Wow. SEPS is a program that basically is a joint baby of USAID and the State Department and is implemented by USAID's key operational arm, the National Endowment for Democracy. But this is a USAID program on countering disinformation. Internet censorship is what they do, and we went over last time. Remember, we played that 2-minute video where they were openly saying that the plan is to get foreign governments to pass legal reform, pass laws and regulations to stop the spread of misinformation on U.S. social media websites.
Jeez.
Freaking drop the nuke. Because for the longest time, people were like, oh, well, the government. I think the government's in on misinformation. The government might be controlling some independent news. No, they are flat out funding it by hundreds of millions of dollars, funding, shutting down, and blacklisting independent news media sites because they're not giving you the narrative that the government wants you to have.
Did you know that the Pentagon has a budget for Hollywood and the scripts it writes? Look it up. You'll find out that they do. The government's in on this stuff. It's all psyops. And it's so crazy because you were considered a conspiracy theorist to talk about it 40 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, dude,
deep state.
this is crazy. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's crazy. It's all mind control. This is what they want. I know. It sounds crazy. I'm sure people will watch this episode and go, oh, Massey's falling off talking about pastors. And that's fine. I don't care. I don't need to preach. Listen, I did not do ministry to make it a career. Okay, I'm not exactly beating down the door here to preach. My wife may disagree because she loves when I go out and travel. But I'm saying to you, this is not a career to me. This is truth to me, okay? And the bottom line is we have for too long allowed this to happen. Now, what's great is a resurgence in the patrioticness of America. We're seeing a lot of things happen, and on both sides. I think now when you have the left who, and I'm talking about progressives and all that stuff, who are like, oh, we're going to lose our nation. It's like, well, you guys already lost our nation because you don't even know how it started. You don't even know where it comes from. You don't even know the basic tenets of the Constitution. You don't know the articles of the Confederation. You don't know the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. You don't understand the Federalist Papers. You've never read the Anti-Federal. I promise you haven't, because if you had, you would understand the basis of our law, and you would not be saying 3/4 of the mess that comes out of your mouths. You don't understand. You're socialists. As a matter of fact, I'll say this to you. Each state of the union is guaranteed a Republican form of government. We covered this before. Actually, we did not cover this. I actually covered it on Alex McFarland's show that I did last week. Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution says that each state shall be guaranteed a Republican form of government by the United States. What happens when you're a socialist in the Republic? You're illegal.
You're not guaranteed.
It's treasonous to try to do something other than the Republic that will be guaranteed as a Republic. It's illegal. It's wrong.
And can I add to that?
Go ahead.
And then you stand by while the American people are pilfered
100
for your political goals. Because guess what? USAID was funding something like 50,000 NGOs that were built to influence government
100
across the world.
100
And guess what? In the U.S. So you're now using my tax dollars against me and trying to influence the government to keep yourselves in power. And you look at me and you go, well, I mean, you guys are getting a little conspiracy theory.
No.
Nuts to you.
Yeah, no.
I'm sick of this.
Totally.
I'm sick of defending the system.
Totally.
When the system has absolutely been taking advantage of the American people for decades.
Yeah.
And now finally it's coming out. And the best you guys can do is, well, this is a constitutional crisis.
That's right.
Or you're finally watching stuff come to light, and the budget is being shown of where that money is going. And
So
my
funny.
God, you're flipping your lid.
Like, they're all saying, oh my gosh, the price of eggs has shot up under Trump. He said he would fix this. He's not. I just want to say something. Why are you complaining about the price of eggs now and not the last 4 years? They don't care about you.
No.
They know that the last 5 months of your work life is dedicated to pay them tax money. They know that. They love you being a slave. That literally the last 5 months of your paychecks is literally the taxation that you're paying. And it's so dumb.
And you want a perfect example of that? Elizabeth Warren, who makes under $200,000 a year, is somehow worth $12 million.
How?
Yet you are horrible for even questioning, how is it that all of these politicians get in and suddenly they're multimillionaires? AOC
And their kids.
AOC was a freaking bartender, and now look at her. Right now, she's one of the more honest ones. That's the worst part.
That is the worst part.
That's the worst part. But a lot of these people are multimillionaires, and they look at you with sneers because they know they're milking you for everything you're worth. And then they turn around and say, how dare you question me?
Yeah, one of the big issues with AOC is not just because she says things that are unconstitutional. Everything she talks from is emotion.
Yeah.
When she was grilling Tom Holman, she was like, it goes against international law. Well, anything pursuing against the Constitution is null and void. Anything against the Constitution is null and void. Doesn't matter what international law says. I don't submit as a nation to the international laws. Our Constitution reigns supreme over anything international, what we're doing. Well, Congress voted to be a part. It doesn't matter. Then they should all be hung for treason. I said it. And you know what's so crazy? To even say that is wrong somehow. Why? Nuremberg trials, anyone? You're selling out your nation, and we're just going to allow it to happen because international law now overtakes our federal laws and state laws? Seriously? We're an independent, sovereign nation. The people are independent and sovereign, not the government. We elected the government. Therefore, guess what? We hold you accountable. And finally, when it starts to happen, it's wrong now because we don't want them to tell us what to do when the Constitution already tells you what to do, and you guys don't even care. Sotomayor said our decisions probably won't even be upheld anyways. We're just going to have to fight it. They haven't even followed the Constitution. What is she talking about? You see what I'm saying? And it's so crazy to say people should be punished for treason. They don't even talk about it. But, they stormed the Capitol January 6th. That's the ultimate treason right there. But we've been destroying the Constitution.
Those old ladies are insurrectionists.
Yeah, when Bernie Sanders is employing socialistic and communistic tendencies in our nation, which is not constitutional, Article 4, Section 4, right? And he's somehow making millions.
And then somehow
through book sales and things like that.
Somehow he has several properties. He drives in
Audi R8.
super expensive vehicles to get on his private jets and then fly over on his private jets because communism.
That's why you need to keep digging and keep holding even your state officials and your local officials accountable. I'm waiting for Doge to happen in our county governments, or state governments, or city governments.
Let's do it.
I think Doge should happen in all those levels. I don't even know why it takes a law or a bill for that. We should be able to request all these documents and say, line by line, what do we do? When you have people who are upright, exposing the mess, they're the ones getting yelled at.
Yeah, wasn't it Elizabeth Warren who was saying that the American citizen has no right to see what the government is doing?
Yeah. Okay. Talk about not wanting a monarchy. She just acted in the place of a king. You don't have the right to know what I'm doing. Really?
You don't have a right to question
Really?
me.
But you have the right to employ 87,000 IRS agents to make sure that when I pull out $600, it's accounted for from my account. They're demonic. It's devilish, bro.
Yeah, it is.
And you know what? This is why we need to preach the gospel continuously. I'm not even mad. Here's what it is. I'm not even mad at them. I'm mad that we as a nation allowed it to come to this. And we've been saying this for a long time. You know, Rick Greens and the David Bartons and the Chris Anhalls and all these guys have been preaching this for a long time. The unconstitutionality of everything. I'm just frustrated that it got to this point. We elected these people, Elizabeth Warren's and all these guys. They elect them, so it's not like, you know what I mean? Like they're just acting out what they said they would do.
And okay, you said your part where it's you're giving your own opinion. I'm gonna give my opinion a little bit. For all of you who are like, well, you need to just preach the gospel. A, I don't know that you fully understand what the gospel is, but B. You've just said, if what we just said is something that offends you to the point of, well, I mean, you guys are a ministry. You're just supposed to talk about the gospel. Just talk about Jesus. Boy, that's funny. I'm not allowed to talk about righteousness. I'm not allowed to talk about wickedness that oppresses the people. I'm not allowed to talk about the fact that Satan is running roughshod over people, including the church. And yet, when I speak up and I say, this is wrong, this is evil, this is unrighteous, you look at me and point the finger and go, well, you need to just preach the gospel. That's fine. All right? Go ahead and bend down to your masters, because guess what? You've decided that unrighteousness is more important than stepping up and standing for righteousness and saying, no, this is wrong. And guess what? I've kind of got some backing from the Old Testament where the prophets go to nations that were not their own and pointed the finger and said, what you're doing is unrighteous. Right. God is coming for you.
Can I add to what you're saying? Because this will be its own clip. Maybe we should go a little bit longer and just discuss this. I am not a proponent of Doge. I'm not. I do think these four-letter agencies are unconstitutional. I think that they're another ploy from the government to upend more authority than they should have had. Now the president kind of can just sign law. I'm just being honest with you guys. But I came to this conclusion just this last month. I have to start where we're at in order to do something about it. Could we reform the system? Yeah, but we've proven over the last 60, 70 years, we can't even reform the Department of Education through Congress, okay? They're the ones who pass laws. So I don't know what else to do at this point. And I'm not even justifying Doge. I'm not justifying what they're doing. I think that the next president can come in and use Doge or any other program now to usurp authority more because it's under the purview of the executive branch. It's just, all we're doing is giving the president more authority and more power than he ever should have had. So in no way am I agreeing that this step is always needed, where it's like someone comes in and just starts cleaning house and writing EOs. And it comes off to me as a little bit tyrannical. You know, it does. Now, some of you will say, well, look at the corruption it's uncovering. So then, you know what would actually stop that? Is if we prosecute every single person that was doing that. The president should be saying, you know what? We need to press charges against those who have been illegally writing checks all over the world. Who did that? The Congress? Who was the proponent of these bills? Who are these people we're funding? Maybe we just shut down the government for a year. Just say, you know what? We're not going to do this anymore. I don't know. There's so many different ways you could take this. So to need another 3-letter, 4-letter, 5-letter agency to do this, to me, I'm telling you, it's an open door for the president. I don't care who's in office, Trump, a Democrat, whatever. It's an open door for them to use more power than they've been given to do something different.
See, and this is the beauty of this is I would probably take a different position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is
and that's
quite
me,
right, because I understand where you're coming from. I see it. My position is let's use it as that light, show the evil, show the wickedness, get into the prosecution
of those who did wrong. Yeah,
right. They'll see it as persecution. Get into the prosecutions. And then close the door behind you, right? And move with Congress to go, okay, we just proved through all the evidence that got uncovered how evil and corrupt all of this stuff is. Time for Congress to pass a law. And Mike Johnson, you better get on your seat, pass laws that outlaw this type of stuff, or get to the original intent of the Constitution. But I think this is one of those moments where there was a vagueness that got taken advantage of. So now people are using it with their authority and their power. And it's like, okay, I see it as like a Washington has the power or the opportunity, but then cuts off other people being able to have that opportunity.
I just, you know, this is that Lord Acton thing, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, here's what I'm saying. Very rarely do you see, actually, it's recorded history where the government gives back, unless you watch a movie called Gladiator, where the government goes back to the people and the states. It just never happens. There's always some other doorway that they use. Well, if he did it, I can do it kind of thing, or vice versa, right? I just know that a wrong action to try to do the right thing never ends up good. That's my premise. And maybe I'm idealistic. You know, I'll admit that. I'm very much an originalist. I think that's why our ministry doesn't progress as fast as others, because we're not touting the Trump horn and all these other things. I firmly believe that. I don't care. And you can think, yeah, he's you know, that this is where he goes wrong. He should be supporting what's going on. No, I'm very principled in what I believe. I've been talking about this for years. And Mike doesn't necessarily, him and I don't disagree. I think I just said exposure needed to happen, right? I think there could have been other ways to do it. But when you don't have a cooperative Congress, when you don't have a cooperative Supreme Court, you don't have a cooperative presidency the last, 60, 70 years, you know, so it's like this toss-up. I don't like constitutional things allowed to run amok. I don't think they'll ever shut the door behind them. I think they'll say, see how good this worked? And now we can keep it open so we can do that. You know what I mean? That's my thing. And I just don't trust government. I never have.
Which I completely agree with you. I don't trust government either. I think my position is, well, the precedent set for the last how many decades has been, well, let this run supreme. Well, okay, you open the door for this to run supreme. Now I'm going to use it against you. I'm going to leverage this against you and close the door. And I agree with you. Like, I would love to strike every single 3-letter agency. Just get rid of them, right? Because here's the issue that both he and I agree on. What Congress did was give up some of their power over to the executive branch. Originally, Congress was supposed to define the law. They were supposed to be the ones that write the law. But then what they did is they said, well, I mean, executive branch can handle 3-letter agencies, and they'll be in charge of these because the 3-letter agencies will carry out the law, because that's what the executive branch is supposed to do. They're supposed to enforce the law.
Yeah, that's their job.
So what Congress said is, well, we'll give you the authority of these 3-letter agencies to enforce the law. The problem is, then Congress told the executive branch, well, your 3-letter agencies, you're going to have to write regulations for yourselves.
True.
To determine so all we'll do is we'll write the law that everybody's supposed to pay taxes, which is unconstitutional, but that's another argument.
Which then creates a 3-letter agency.
And then the 3-letter agency writes all the regulations on how you're supposed to pay taxes. The problem is, Congress, you were never supposed to give up your authority in the first place.
That's exactly it.
You were never supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, it's like, okay, let's take a chainsaw, Millier, anybody, let's take a chainsaw to the 3-letter organizations, but we have to prove the evidence of this is how corrupt and evil and awful it's gotten, because Congress, I don't want you to skirt out anything. I want Congress to be sitting holding the bag of billions and billions and billions of dollars of corruption, and we can point the finger back and go, oh yeah, that USAID mess, that's all under you, Congress, because you allowed it to happen.
Right. And I think this is why current events for me was never something I wanted to talk about, was because we're arguing from a basis point that's not even constitutional. You know what I mean? It sucks that we're in this position that the Sotomayor is trying to call out the Trump administration. The Trump administration could equally call out them for all the corruption they've done, but they're both unconstitutional in some ways, which is so crazy, right? So we're arguing the point that's not even the right foundation.
But it has to be argued because nobody understands it.
That's exactly right. So
everybody's arguing, and this is one of the things that I've told you, I don't know how many times, is like, you don't chop at the branch, you chop at the trunk, which is exactly what needs to happen. And so many people are chopping at the branches, and they're like, stop, stop, stop.
I think Thoreau said that.
Chop at the trunk.
Yeah, well, 1,000 men chop at the branches, only one goes for the root. So we got to keep doing what we're doing. Anyways, listen.
Wow, that ran long.
It did, but I'm glad. And guys, listen, even with all the corruption, we still got to keep supporting the exposure of what's happening. We have to, right? There's no question. I'm just saying, to be logically consistent, I have to keep saying these things that I just don't agree with. I don't think constitutionally this is right. And Mike is going to express his opinions, and I don't think we even disagreed necessarily. I think it's just a way to do it, I think, is what we disagree on.
I think, to flesh it out, you see any agency under the executive branch is unconstitutional.
Yes.
Which I don't disagree with. My position is, well, Congress gave that authority, so
technically it's constitutional.
Technically, it's constitutional because that's what everybody's accepted as constitutional at this point. So it's like,
courts and everyone.
All right, then we're going to use that to be the
totally.
But I understand your position, and this is how he and I tend to run. He's the black and white. I'm the
parse it out.
Gray shades to get to white.
Yep,
right?
Yep. Parse it out.
And so he's the keep your eyes on the prize. I'm the here's the steps to get to the prize.
That's exactly how it works. And it's good. So guys, listen, Sotomayor can go fly a kite.
She can go back to Constitution class.
I think all of them need it, dude. Constitutional ethic in school isn't even taught anymore. And we're seeing that more and more. Case law is now taught more than constitutional ethic and theory. And so we don't even know the history. I bet you some of these people couldn't even tell you who William Blackstone was. And if you don't know, look it up. We do a whole class on that. So listen, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys get something out of this stuff. If you do, share it with a friend. If you do as well and you want to support us, please do that at theselfevidenttruth.com. We don't have all the answers, but the answers we do have, we literally labor over them. So we're going out there and speaking again in Nevada. If you want us to come to your area, please let us know. You guys can email us at info@theselfevidenttruth.com. That's found on our website. You can also call us at 612-237-6798. And you guys can find out more information and talk to us. We'd love to come to your area and speak. We've got a lot of cool events. I think we're booked up into August, I think, or something like that. So if we're coming to your area and you want us to extend our tour, we can do that. So guys, God bless you. We will see you Monday.